Thank you very much, Donna. Thank you, Diana. Um, I have to tell you that I'm using today a couple pieces that are pre-recorded, so you might see a little bit of a gap here or there, but I think you'll be able to relax and enjoy yourself, hopefully. And even though this is kind of a heavy subject, I hope that I can help you enjoy your evening and learning about it. Um, I just really know that since COVID, I haven't traveled much anywhere. So I thought we would just do some traveling tonight. Is that okay with you all? All right. Well, I'm going to share my screen with you. And I want to show you um, a sweet young lady here. Um, and we're going to talk about her as we go. So let's go ahead and jump right in, and we won't waste any more of your time. So it's time to travel into my 2021 classroom. Now, I'm assuming that there are probably a fair percentage of us here that are already retired, and maybe you haven't been in a classroom for a little while. So I thought we might travel into the future tomorrow. Boy, that was some trip. I think I made it successfully to the future, but they wouldn't let me in the building without this mask. We'll have to get back to that later. But I did find a few things that you might find interesting. For example, when I kind of wanted to make a phone call, I asked about it. There's the desk, a phone on the teacher's desk. That didn't happen when I started teaching. Um, and I found the class list. It seems as if there are 23 students that are assigned to this room, but there's no evidence of them being here. It's, you know how when you have lots of kids in a room, they tend to leave things around, and you know they've been here. Well, this doesn't seem that happen that way. I also found them in the desk, but I've been teaching Hatchet. I made a few notes in here. So when I looked at the stickies, I found out that I was able to relate some of my experience as a Girl Scout to this young man who had taken a trip as a young child, and similar to the trip that I took to see my sister when she had twins. Um, but I'm thinking that this must be some kind of test because it looks as if this young man had some setbacks and some uh, breakthroughs. He had set some goals and made some plans, and there's a test here somewhere. I'm going to look for it and see if I can find it, and I'll share it with you. Well, I have found it, but it's time for you to travel back before you were 18 years old. Now, don't worry. I think this test is a test that our students aren't going to take in class. And it's something that will just get you ready for what it is that I'm talking about when I talk about ACEs. These are the questions, and if it's too small to read, that's okay. I'm going to read a couple to you. It says, this is the Adverse Childhood Experience questionnaire. And to find your ACE score, you count up how many you can say yes to. Number one, did a parent or other adult in the household often swear at you, insult you, put you down, or humiliate you, or act in a way that made you afraid that you might be physically hurt? Um, one, two, and three all talk about physical abuse. When you get to number four, it's something that teacher can help with. The question says, did you often feel that no one in your family loved you or thought you were important or special? And I think teachers can do that, make students feel like they are important and special. So neglect is where we're at in the middle of the test. By the time you get to number six, these are easy to detect as far as was your parent ever separated or divorced? Even down to number 10, from 6 to 10, is kind of things that students might have observed happening, traumatic experiences. Did your household member go to prison? I know I've had quite a few students who have said, or they're excited about their dad or mom's getting out of prison. So you know that that's an experience that they've had to go through. Um, time to travel into my childhood, and hopefully this will help you get to know me a little bit better and my background. I grew up in a home with two loving parents. My dad worked and my mom stayed at home. All of my siblings focused on education. Since I was the youngest, as they went off to college, I wanted to go to college too. My oldest sister became a nurse, my brother a computer scientist, and my other sister a doctor. I decided to be a teacher. As I started the foundation of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I knew that my physical needs were met. The house I was born in was purchased by my parents before I was born. I had security. I knew I was a part of a family, a huge family on both my mom and my dad's side. Our street was a built-in social network made up of family and friendly people who lived there for most of my life. I actually belonged to two different churches, the one across the street that became the youth group I grew up in as a teenager, and the one my father's ancestors were a part of founding when they came to Ohio in the 1800s. With the exception of one bully that I would ask my mom to tell me I couldn't play with, I was blessed to have a pretty normal childhood. There are things that we take for granted as normal childhood experiences. For example, having fun, home, an extended family, safety, two parents, a brother that can get on your nerves seems pretty normal. But we can begin to think that normal is what was normal in our own experience. But every child does not have our experience. Now we're going to travel in time back to fall of 2019, probably the last normal start to a school year. There was bullying of students in person and online. And that was something that we dealt with and tried to prevent. Students have been homeless. All students in our schools are on free breakfast and lunch. And by the end of 2019, 2020, our schools were up in an area that is now considered a food desert. There are opioids that are affecting our students, violence in our community and in our country that affect our students as well. I had to take a look at my normal and compare it to the normal of the students in my class. Of the students in my room every day, 15% lived with both birth parents, which meant that 85% did not. 35% had no father listed at all. 60% do not have the last name of their primary parent or guardian. 57% of my homeroom had an IEP or have English as a second language. The other 43% were all reading below grade level. I'd like to share with you a couple of students who had very specific, impactful situations in their lives. Judy was one that came to me with a guardian, not the real parent, who was supposed to pick her up every day. But then all of a sudden her dad shows up and he said he would be the person picking her up now. Within a week, she came to my desk and quietly shared with me that dad is now in jail and that aunt would pick her up. And I said, you've had kind of a rough year. So we went through, where are the places that she stayed during the school year? By this time, the summer of 2020, she would be with 7 different households, which told me that the score that she had to be at least a 4, just based on my conversation with her. In case you're wondering, all names have been changed to protect the innocent. Abigail is a student who was an A+ student. Never talked to me at all about her home life. She was gifted in art. The dad was in prison for killing her mom. Brian was in the car with his family when the car flipped over. The accident was so traumatic for mom that she had nightmares. And these nightmares woke up Brian in the middle of the night. So when Brian returned to school, a little injured, but okay, he was upset at school worrying about how mom was doing. We'll come back to Brian in a bit. So in case you are wondering who that adorable young lady was at the beginning of our time together, this is my great niece. I'll call her AJ today. I had to share the fact with Brian and his mom that my 4-year-old niece was in counseling, learning how to grow up without her daddy that we suddenly lost. It is okay to get help. You know, I'm preaching to the choir when I say that chaos is what many of our children call normal. and they are bringing it back with them to our classes. Considering the fact that our students have now had 5 full months at home because of this pandemic, they may be bringing back more than what it seems that we can give. I hope you don't mind if I share a brief thought with you. I was reminded by my favorite Wittenberg professor of a simple science lesson that I would like to apply to teaching. As long as this lamp has oil, the wick doesn't burn. But in the classroom, when teachers' emotional resources are exhausted, the teacher can burn out. And that's kind of like burning all the wick at both ends and all of that kind of thing. Now, to start the journey, even though we kind of have started, this is what sparked my inspiration. The journey began in the fall of 2019 with this email from Dr. Hill. This powerful informational film based off of the ACE studies is a must-see for educators, mental health providers, medical professionals, youth service providers, or parents interested in the impact of childhood trauma on our students. I was going to ask my sisters, but I decided to go. Even though they're medical professionals, I knew my students needed hope. The movie was called The Biology of Stress and the Science of Hope. And this is about 2 minutes, and it's going to throw me into YouTube, and then I'll have to jump back in. But I think we can do it.
We all like to think of childhood as this time of joy and innocence. But, I mean, for many of us, it's just not true.
You grow up in these type of situations, it's not something you talk about. I know I did it.
The first thing that we found is that adverse childhood experiences are common.
Kids are young, they don't know what's going on, they won't remember anyway. Well, the child may not remember, but the body remembers.
There was this incredible gee whiz effect. You mean adverse childhood experiences cause heart disease and lung disease and liver and cancer?
Exposure to trauma affects children's developing brains. The impact is on your behavior, it's on your heart, it's on your DNA. Like, how do you deal with all that?
I don't reach out because I'm not used to that.
We have a whole new body of knowledge now that could open up what we have up till now been seen as intractable, unsolvable problems.
No child should be punched or kicked. No child should be punched or kicked.
If you can get the science into the hands of the general population, they will invent very wise actions.
Do you feel like any of the interventions have been making a difference?
They made all the difference in the world.
It's there, it's possible. And a defeatist attitude is completely disconnected from what 21st century science is telling us. And we should be going after that like a bear.
That is Dr. Nadine Burke Harris. She is actually now California's Surgeon General. And I just recently watched her. She had a TED Talk. So that's something you could look up.
Resilience.
Well, this is going to play for me. I hope you don't mind. There's more than one way to take care of that. Okay, here we go. The ACE study did have over 17,000 people, mostly upper to middle class. Most went to college, primarily Caucasian. And it revealed that you are 32 times more likely to have behavioral problems in school with a score of 4. So those children who went down through that test, the kids didn't actually do it, the parents, I believe, did. But if they had a score of 4, you're going to see it in the classroom. When I saw Dr. Harris on her TED Talk, she mentioned that they went to a certain area in California to open a clinic to reduce the regular medical issues that they were seeing. But after this study, she realized kind of a light bulb went off and her perspective changed. And so that's kind of what happened to me when I saw the video. I realized, the documentary, that the information that they're giving us says there's real evidence that the things our children that we see every day are going through is affecting them later in life. Who's talking about what we're supposed to do to help them? You know, my degree was not in psychology, you know, counseling. What do I do? You know, so I just thought that it would be a good idea for us to start a conversation to figure out what can we do? What are people doing? Let's spread the good news that there is hope, and that maybe we could be a part of that. The next slide is going to go pretty quick.
As you can see, adverse childhood experiences are common.
And these are just some of the statistics that were in there in the documentary there.
So what does this really mean? This ACE study, this ACE score, how does it affect people? Well, they've proven that the higher your ACE score, the higher your risk. 64% had at least one ACE. If you have 4, you're 2 times more likely to have heart disease and cancer. And as you can see, it goes on and on. But what about our students? I learned that ADHD cannot be diagnosed with traumatic experiences. Exposure to these traumatic experiences does affect children's developing brains. So while we have them in our classrooms, we have to figure out on that road they're traveling, how can we provide a little bit of light at the end of the rainbow?
So we're going to time travel into some of the things that I already knew and already did that might be helpful. I didn't realize that I may already have what I needed. I just need to do a better job using the resources that I had. This might be a good time to stop and see if anybody has any burning questions that you can't wait till the end for. If you do come
Melody, is the documentary available anywhere to watch, like Netflix or?
It's actually on YouTube now. You can go to the actual website, I think it's PJR. I have a handout that I can send you if you put your email or send me an email, and I'll put that in the chat so that you can do that. But yes, if you just look up either this title, Resilience, or if you look up Paper Tigers, the Paper Tigers focuses more on the high school or higher level students and the things that they are facing. So any other questions you might have? Nope. So I'm going to go ahead and admit to you.
I didn't realize.
Wait a minute, Melody, wait a minute.
I'll wait.
Remember that.
Hold on, my voice is going without me. Go ahead.
Donna DeWitt wanted to know, she had never heard of the term food desert. What specifically does that mean?
The entire south end of Springfield doesn't have any grocery stores. Nothing within like walking distance at all. It's like miles. I don't know exactly how many to the nearest grocery that would have, you know, there are like speedways on the corners here and there, but not, there are fast food places, but there are not places where people can shop for regular meals to prepare at home. Any fresh produce at all. So. Any others? Or I can keep going. We'll have more time at the end as well.
Right. Go ahead.
Okay. So I was embarrassed because once I started looking at my desk and all the stuff in it, and I had been using this program called PAX because our school bought it for us. They trained us all in one day before school started one year. And the very beginning of the book, it talks about what is the opposite of nurturing PAX environment? It's an adverse childhood experience. And this, so the whole program is actually designed around making an environment in the classroom that is completely positive so that students can come and have a place where they feel comfortable, they feel like they can learn, that they're rewarded. And if you can get them to start focusing more on the learning, then they will change their focus from that negative home life that they've had, so that they normally would bring with them. So it is a good program. It's very expensive, I guess, but it might be something a school might choose to purchase if you feel like your community really needs some support.
I was energized after I watched this documentary. I wanted to begin a professional conversation. I knew I couldn't fix every situation in my classes and heal all of the hurt in my students' hearts. So I started talking with people who had more professional experience and training to help students and families who really needed wraparound services. This book, The Deepest Well, was recommended to me, Healing the Long-Term Effects of Childhood Adversity by Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris. She's the doctor in resilience. Watching Resilience, the biology of stress and the science of hope, you may have seen a teacher saying, "No child should be punched or kicked," while she was holding up a sign. The students repeated that back to her. Well, this is Miss Kendra's list, and it gives you a little bit of information in case that might be something you would like to look into.
And that website, traumainformedschools.org, is one that this came from, and a lot of other resources are you can find there. Now, if you're not familiar, the state of Ohio does have a K-12 social and emotional learning standards. When it first came out, I believe at this point, it is now required, but at first they had said that any district can use it however they wish. And so I wasn't really sure, it came out in 2019, that we knew that it existed and how to use it. So when one of my coaches suggested, after seeing part of this, that I do it for professional development for our district, I created a Google class. It's basically they can go in at their own pace, click on, and this was in 2 different parts. They clicked on one part that talked like the beginning, my history. They could look at what it was, and then they were to kind of answer a couple questions about themselves. Is their ACE score what they expected? Have you seen children that have high ACE scores? What are some things that you believe could help them? So they wrote that to get one task completed. The other task I asked them to do was to go through the standards and create or find activities they already do or they would like to do that the standards just flow right into, and they do connect to all kinds of subjects. So almost any teacher at all could find something. There are 5 competencies: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision making. And I think those are the things that we really want our students to have by the time they graduate. I know that there are many times I think I'm not teaching a subject, I'm teaching a student. And if their mind is so focused on what's happened and they're in a heightened state, they can't really learn anything because they're not open to new learning. But if we can figure out a way to put that together and give them positive experiences, then they're more likely to take that in and learn from it. So one of the things, I think I'm already talking on this one. Let's see.
As I went through Ohio's K-12 social and emotional learning standards, I made a little note by a number of them to talk to my school counselor. I know that she has activities and other things that might be appropriate in a class meeting that don't necessarily fit into my content area, but would help our students learn and grow. "100 years ago, August 18, 1920, the 19th Amendment was ratified, giving women the right to vote. This is a picture of an activity that I know engaged my students and supported
the social emotional standards. I'm sorry that went too fast on it. But they really did enjoy that. I had an artist come in who helped them make the little tiles so that they were able to incorporate art. They really did enjoy that. Hatchet is the book that I was holding up, and we have taught that. There was some concern about the fact that he gets to a place where he wasn't sure he wanted to keep living. And that's a hot topic to bring up. And I didn't want to be the one responsible for bringing that up without giving them the support they need to handle that knowledge. And so trying to teach them how to be resilient, how to overcome setbacks, how to come up with a plan, how to, be aware of what's around you and what do you have. And there are nice quotes in that book that talk about how you are your greatest asset and that you should, and encourages. He had some encouragement from a teacher to do what he needed to do in order to survive a situation that was very, very difficult.
Looking at PBIS reminds me, even though I believe you do know what PBIS is, that we need to stay positive to help maintain a nurturing classroom environment. But you may run across a parent that is having difficulty with their child and would like a tip or two that might help at home. This PBIS home matrix is on the Ohio Department of Education website. It's not too hard to find. ODE, put in PBIS, and you'll find this available for you to assist a home that might need some help in the midst of the chaos. Liliana is a documentary that shows teachers helping orphans write their own stories. They explain what has happened to them, and then they have a chance to finish the story in a way that they would like to see it finished.
Reminds me of Tuesday's breakout session. Now we're going to travel into the future with a little hope and some information.
Poverty, written by Dr. Ruby Payne, is not a source of support I had before, but I am glad that I have it now. I think this is an important reference to know how to reduce anger, anxiety, and violence in the classroom.
This is actually a website that I found just recently, and it's called Brain's Journey to Resilience. If you type that in, it has the cutest 8-minute video, which I thought was maybe just a little too long for us tonight, about how a brain can get affected by, and they show this brain traveling in the snow, like a literal brain by itself, no body. And it goes through some vocabulary and it shows it like a back and forth between a couple of narrators. And it's just kid friendly and will help the students understand that a lot better. And it is from a company that is out of Canada. So but it's on the internet, and with our internet age, we're doing a great job finding resources too. So time travel into what I know now. What is competence?
I can't end today without taking at least a moment to think about what competence is. Success may look like 80% or higher on a test, improving in academic skills each year, an A+ on a state report card. That would be nice, but can our students set goals and learn how to reach them? Do they know how to persevere through challenges and setbacks? We know life brings those. Do they have the ability to respect human dignity? Have they developed communication skills? Have they learned to solve conflicts in constructive ways? Can they make good decisions, especially those decisions that help them overcome the adversities they experience in the midst of their childhood?
So my virtual classroom data, this is where I am now. I have lost a student since we first started this. I'm at 23 that are at home, and I am going to school every day. And so this is like me talking in my class on a regular basis. I talk to a computer, which is so different than when I first started teaching. Like you saw at the beginning, I didn't even have a phone in my room. Now we have air-conditioned schools. We do have computers for every student, and it's very different than it was before. Within this group that I have now, I still see people who are homeless, students who are homeless. One parent is actually on a waiting list for a kidney, so we pray for her. 48% have lost family members this year. Not all of them are to COVID, but my children are going through some difficult times. More than half are from broken homes, and over 25% have court documentation that they are with a guardian, maybe a grandparent, or one particular parent where another parent can't have contact. It's very sad situations. But on our first state test last week, I had 100% come into the building to take their reading test. So I'm very hopeful that they did a great job, at least the best they could under the circumstances that we have had. So I'm very encouraged, and it's a lot more work for me to have to teach all the subjects at this level rather than just the two I was teaching the last few years. But I do feel like building a community has been very helpful to the students I have, and knowing what I've known about this, I have had a whole year to work on this since our convention was postponed. I'm really grateful that I've been able to get to know their families and their situations and try to encourage them. The other day, when we have a morning announcements, and our assistant principal person told a joke. And so my students started telling me jokes. And I thought, this is so nice to see that they're coming up with things that will make each other laugh and to encourage one another. So I just really am grateful to see that in the midst of the chaos, they're learning the things that they need to learn. So whether the test score says that they did a great job this year or not, I'm okay with it, because I do believe that they have participated in Zoom meetings 3 times a day and their specials, that they're doing well with that. So this is a quote from one of my favorite movies. You may have seen it. I don't want to spoil all 3 of them for you, but this is from Back to the Future 3. And it says, your future hasn't been written yet. No one's has. Your future is whatever you make it. So make it a good one. So
about writing
and here we go. So we're going to time travel into your future, if that's okay. I did want to tell you first, so think about it, what you could do in the future. Our district, I did have some communication with some people around, and we have actually a trauma learning community that I did not know about. They meet once a month, virtually now, and they're doing things like some professional development. This is the group that I believe did a book study on the boy who was raised by a dog in our district. Panorama is a program that is surveying certain buildings, not all of them right now, about the learning, social emotional learning, and what we can do. And they're getting results back. They don't have them all yet, or I could have shared them with you. There is a crisis flight team, which I think most districts have, but they call it that. And unfortunately, they have had to use it this year, where different caregivers in the system, the counseling, go to a particular school where there might be a crisis. We had 2 students that were shot and killed. So there are book studies, and they do plan to do some training in the fall. There are some district, what do you want to call it, regional trainings for social emotional learning now that were not offered before. So I think the pandemic has woken up our community and have helped us all realize that this is a real issue, and it's something that should be addressed. It's nothing to be ashamed of. And even teachers are going through their own mental health issues and learning how to deal and overcome with difficult situations that we have never had before. So for you, if you wouldn't mind, think about these. The possibility of starting a discussion or asking around, finding out some information. If you can think of anything while I'm talking, please feel free to throw something in the chat. Maybe there's another resource I didn't mention or something you think might be helpful. That would be great. What is my school district doing to help all of our children learn? That is a question you could ask or to seek out. Is there anything I can do to support them in the classroom? What does competence look like to children who have experienced trauma? What are we expecting? Before I get to the next one, I do want to tell you a real quick story about a young man who is new to our building. One of the assignments I have is recess duty. So I go outside and play with them, but you understand, supervise recess. And I saw 2 boys acting like they were fighting with each other, and I knew they were playing. But I went out to the field and I said, hey, you guys, if I was a teacher over there and I saw you doing this, would you be, what do they think you think that they might think? And they said fighting. And then the one little boy who was new to the school, new to Kenwood, started talking about well, this is something to do with my dad, and he would do this and that. And before my conversation was over, I'm glad I approached it kind of in a calmer way, because he said he was in another state. His dad was in Ohio. They were playing Nintendo or something online. You know how they can do that kind of stuff. And he said that his dad found out that his dad walked away from this game and was shot and killed. So our kids are very, very, and I didn't know that that had happened. So we don't always understand or know what's going on in our kids' lives. And that's the conversation that at some point I'd like to see answered. How can we get knowledge to, and I know there are HIPAA laws and laws like that for education, but at some point we have to be more sensitive or caring and understand that our children who might want to get on our nerves, there's a reason for it. Then we may not know what that is. The last thing, have you attended a cost of poverty experience? There is a group here in Springfield that puts these on, and what we did as a district, one professional development back when it was normal, we're able to get into a room together and we each had a role. Some people were parents, some people were children, some people did different things. And so in order to get through your day and through your week or through your month, a parent had to go get gasoline if they had a car, or they had to go pay their rent, or they had to do this, and they had to go different places. The kids had to go to school. And so you got an understanding in a role-playing situation where, what is it like to be in poverty? A lot of us think, oh, we just jump in the car and go do what we have to do. It's not that easy if you can't afford a car, or if you don't have a bus system that meets you. So there are issues that our families have when they're in poverty that lead to traumatic situations and decisions being made. So something to think about, questions that you could ask to help support your community. I'll play this for you.
In a different conversation I had with a professor, I talked about the fact that we are dealt a hand. You may be in the richest of families, you may be in the poorest, but you don't have to stick with the hand you have. You have to learn to play the game. Our students aren't in a game. This is their lives, and with whatever hand they're dealt, it would benefit us, it would benefit them if we could help them figure out how to play the hand that they have been dealt. So I hope that this has been a profitable learning experience for you, encouraging for you, and also to help our students learn and grow.
So it's time for our conversation. This is actually a picture I took from the Dome, which used to be the South High School that they did not tear down when they rebuilt all of our schools. And if you're up there, you're looking north, this is what you see. So my email is up there if you'd like to put that down, and I am willing to take some questions. I can't tell you I'm a professional and know all the answers. I've just been teaching for a long time now and am doing the best I can to help our kids.
Oh, can I ask a question verbally? Or I put one in chat, but
sure.
Are you familiar with the Jefferson Street Oasis there in Southwest Springfield, Ohio?
I am not.
Okay, well, it partners with, it's a community garden because of the food desert there. And so it partners with the Children's Rescue Center.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
they have a lot of opportunities for the children in this community garden. And then they can take home the produce and the food and eat healthy. But the children have a special section for children to learn how to grow plants, and then they also have chickens, and the children can help gather the eggs, and they can take home fresh eggs. So anyway,
that's great.
Yeah, no, it's a great place for kids to visit, and the families from this poor area of Springfield can interact with each other, and it's a positive experience for the most part.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I'll check that out and see if we can't hook them up. That'd be great.
Right, right.
Melanie, may I give you some information too?
Sure. I'll take it up.
You might get in touch with Ann
Mhm.
Todd. She did a program for our chapter in Huron County. Another teacher and Ann developed a program that's doing exactly what you're talking about in the room. And they have written materials, and their school system got on it 100% and funded it and trained their teachers. It started in the high school and now it is completely down to kindergarten. It's absolutely amazing. You might check with her. And I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the program.
That's okay. She can tell me. Yeah.
Libby French is the counselor.
Right.
Libby French.
Okay. I can tell. Any other questions or ideas or thoughts?
This is usually a pretty talkative group.
I would
I
just
think
like
they
to,
might.
toss in one
Go ahead.
other comment about the gardening and so on. I'm in Pickaway County, and a teacher in the rural end of town got a garden club to work with whatever kids showed up to plant a garden.
Okay.
When the crops began to grow, they showed them how to cook them. They arranged with the library's bookmobile to come at the same time. So they made it a wonderful learning experience without having to go through a lot of agencies and so on. Just a fun thing to do.
Good. Our school does have some property too. I don't know if they'd let us turn it into a farm or not, but it could be. You know. Yeah.
That'd be a wonderful experience for those kids.
Mhm.
Something to look forward to.
Right.
I had a series of comments and thoughts too.
Sure.
Am I coming through?
Yes.
Okay. Then number one, was the PAX pretty hard to do when you're doing it virtually? Almost impossible, right?
Probably not completely impossible. There are games to play. So you could do that online too. I have not used it as much as I did in prior years though.
Well, spatially, when it's very hard to control or work on behavior when you're distanced. I mean, putting a child in a corner or asking them to stay 5 minutes after recess or any of the other kinds of things that we would normally think of behavior. But
well, the PAX program is completely positive.
Right.
They don't even want you to turn the lights off. They don't want to clap in your hands too loud because it might startle them and then bring them back into something that was a traumatic experience for them. So it's all positive. They get time and they get spleens, or which is a negative thing that they're doing, and they don't do it individually. They do it as like a group that they might be working with, or this part of the room. I hear a spleen. So you tell them the expectations up front, and if they meet the expectations, then their group actually gets to do a quick game.
Reward.
And so there's a reward. Yes, there's always something positive. So it's really not driven by negative things. It's always driven by the positive actions.
Well, my point is, it's kind of hard to just even walk over and say, okay, that was a good idea, or those kinds of things when
Yes, right. You're right.
I was also going to say that food deserts don't always just occur in inner cities.
No.
We recently lost our Kroger store same time that Springfield did too. So there's not a major grocery store in Hardin County.
Wow.
You just think, so if you want fresh produce, you need to wait till the Amish grow what they're ready to, kind of a strange kind of situation. So, so our library started a growing field, but again, it's very limited. So I thank you for all of your input today. And thank you for your knowledge and sharing. And I know that there's a lot of children going through lots of trauma that we couldn't possibly understand.
Michelle Koenig, you've got a question?
Yeah. Just wanted to say that when I do my container gardening program, 2 weeks from today, I'll be teaching some where the people can actually show their students how to use the recycled 5-gallon containers that you can get from nurseries on how to grow vegetable gardens. So that's something that the kids could actually do on the playgrounds at the school. And it is also something that the kids would be able to possibly do in a small corner in their backyard. So I'll be doing more than just flowers. I'll be showing how the kids can do some growing on things that can help create food sources for themselves at home.
Good.
Melody, going forward, what are your expectations for your school district in this realm? What are you expecting them to follow through with or start, or what are your plans?
Well, I recommended recently that I know that this year we kind of tested the waters with the virtual thing being added. And they scheduled all of our buildings to have the exact same schedule. So all fourth grade teachers have the same plan time. All, you know what I mean? Every grade level has the same. And so I suggested in a number of places that they start to introduce or discuss the standard, the social emotional learning standards, so that they can have time to talk with one another at each grade level and see how they can put that in place. Because it's really not as hard as it looks. It's just a matter of making yourself aware that it's there and there are things that you can do that can help. So I'm hoping that that will happen. I know that there's a cohort of people that will be trained in the coming year, and they're going to follow up on the other is it Pandora data that they have collected, but they haven't processed yet. So one of the things is we don't want to drop the ball, especially on families like the families that have obviously had issues of loss in our school. So I think keeping those up to date is important, and making sure people are followed up with. Our district this year changed the model of our counseling, and they are pushing in and actually are doing a special with all students once a week. So instead of having a group of here, a group there, or on demand because there's an emergency counseling, they are doing more preventative teaching to help students handle their counseling needs. So I don't know that all the counselors like it, but I think it's good for the kids, so. And I'm keeping my eyes and ears open, and when I get a chance, I'm speaking up. So.
Okay, how about your other teachers? Are they all on board or getting on board?
I think they're getting on board. I mean, I was surprised at how many took it was a voluntary professional development that was offered, through, most of what was here today. And I had over 100, or about right at 100, that wanted to do that. So, and actually did the work. So people are aware, so I think they see it. I know they see it because our classrooms, you can tell that students are in need. And the district knows that's why we are able to get packs and other things like that, to kind of help out with discipline in the district.
What about any grants? Are there any grants available to you?
I'm not sure, but that is something I need to look into. If anybody knows any, send me an email. Let me
That
know.
might be a really good question to ask Ann and Libby.
Okay. All right.
Melody and Diana,
Yes.
if you don't mind, I raised my hand, I thought, but maybe I didn't. Just one thing we might do is make sure, since I sit on the Springfield Promise Board, we should probably make sure that we do a better job of connecting existing resources. So you and I need to talk offline and make sure that we find a way to connect you and the thoughts you're having here in a way that could be helpful not only to students at Kenwood,
Sure.
but also some of the things that Springfield promised, to Diana's point about grants and monies and things that I know they are working on. And even because I'm not sure that Kenwood is one of our promised schools, but that doesn't mean lessons learned can't be shared.
Sure. I'll take you up on that.
Melody, it's Nisha. So my point is, we are getting a lot of money in our district. All the schools are getting federal aid from stimulus, So I think $13.6 million, I think we could probably afford just a little bit to help our kids out, because this would go into, in my opinion, kind of like fixing those effects of the COVID.
That's true. Dr. Hill's our superintendent, and I did mention to him at the last, he has a quarterly kind of session where you can send questions in and answers. So after the last session, I did send him an idea about the having like an academic caseworker for those kids who are so transient, especially, I see some that don't show up in my class I had 2 that didn't come for almost the whole quarter. And they're not planning on any retentions at this time, but those families need support. And if they're not showing up and they're online, the district's giving them hotspots, and then there's something else going on that they really need to look into and make sure that they are falling, through the cracks. So he sounded like he was willing to take a look at that. So, or at least make sure that something happens.
Melody, Chris Snoddy, can you speak up, or do you want me to say what you just put into the chat?
Well, you can go ahead and read it.
No. You go ahead. It's your baby. It's your bailiwick. Go ahead.
So, Melody, it sounds like if you kind of envisioned a project up to $500 worth for your classroom, that you could apply to our foundation, the Alpha Delta State Ohio Educational Foundation, and specifically my committee, Educational Services, has a classroom project award. So you fill out the application online and email it to me any time of the year if you want to work on something for next year or whatever, but consider doing that.
Okay, I will. We'll consider that. Yeah, actually my chapter helped to fund that art project. Help with the supplies for the artist. Very appreciative. Anything else for the evening? I don't want to keep you longer than you need to be here, but I do appreciate all of your input.
Donna DeWitt had a comment in there. Have we shared that yet?
No, go ahead.
She took a seminar through Ashland University through effective educational seminars on social emotional learning. And it focused on using literature to teach social emotional skills. And it says if anyone's looking to learn more, this might be an option. And then further on, someone did recommend. Okay, that's not it. Someone recommended a book.
The Glass Castle.
There
and
you go.
Competence. Both are excellent, excellent. Our Ohio State Alumni Association did a book study on each of those, and they're very well written and enlightening. Particularly Glass Castle for transient students. And also the Glass Castle has been on a lot of the free channels for, well, I'll put it this way. On cable, it's been on some of the cable stations where you could get a free movie.
Thank you, Donna, for
Recent
sharing that.
movie, yeah, a recent movie.
Thank you.
And Melody, you were complimented on using that time travel format too. That was enjoyable.
Well, good, good. Got
Yeah.
to just act a little silly in public.
That's always fun. Well, we appreciate you doing this for us, and very informative, very interesting, and very much needed. And we do thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
For all of you ladies, if you haven't signed in for the attendance yet, you make sure you do that. Go to chat, type in your first and last name, type in your chapter name, and send it to everyone. Also, if you want PDU credit, send me an email. My email address is in the chat, and just let me know. If you've not done this in the past, I'll need your mailing address. If you have received certificates from me in the past, I already have your mailing address. Also, watch for an e-blast this weekend for next week's session on Tuesday. That session will be about membership prescription for membership recruitment. And then on Thursday, Bev Babbert will present how to look like $1 million on a thrift store budget. So you'll want to make sure you sign up for those, and they both sound enjoyable also. And if there's nothing else, we'll say goodnight to you ladies. And thank you again, Melody. You are delightful and very informative.
Thank you.
Good night, ladies.
Good night.
Good night. Thanks, Melody.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Nicely done. Thanks.
Thank you, Pam.
I
Hey,
like the
Linda.
time travel.
Yeah, Linda, I tried to find your email that you said you put in the chat, and I scrolled up. I don't see it.
Okay, I'll do it again right now for you. Let's see, I need to send it to everyone.
Yeah, I think, Linda, what happens is that when we enter, we can only see the chats that have happened since we entered. So if you fill in chat, say at 6:50, and I enter at 6:55, I can't see what you typed in. I can only see
Not
what's been.
realize that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we enter very early, and as soon as we get on, we get.
Right.
I didn't realize that was the case. Thanks for informing us, Chris.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, Chris.
When I scroll all the way up through chat, I can only get to the moment I entered the session. So it is helpful when you type it in again at the end.
Okay. I just typed it in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.